Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another van video. This is not going to be an adventure video, this is going to be something a little bit different. If you are new around here, I self-built this medium wheelbase van over the course of 17 months with no experience whatsoever. And in today's video, we are going to be going through some of the van life fails. Not only the fails throughout the construction of this van, but also the fails whilst living in this van. So, without further ado, let's get straight into this video and go through some van life fails. I will say a lot of these fails I didn't necessarily record, so I can't really show clips. I do have pictures of certain things which I will include in the clips as we're talking about them, but a lot of them I didn't really record. So, like I said, if you are new around here, this is my tiny home on wheels. There is a van tour video. I'll drop the link in the description. So if you're interested, go check it out. But van life fails. What have I encountered and what have I learnt throughout the build of the van and living in the van as well? Number one is preparation. So if you're new to the van life game, the best thing to do is when you're looking for your perfect van is take a mechanic with you. Even if you chuck in 50 quid, get a professional down with you and check out the van. Make sure it's mechanically sound, the bodywork's okay. It doesn't need to be perfect. This van is a 20-year-old van, and if you know Fords, you know that they are absolute rust buckets. And I knew a mechanic at the time. He come down with me, we checked out the van. We knew that there was some welding needed to be done. However, when we started taking off body parts, we started taking off the bumpers, the wings, we realized there was a lot more welding that needed to be done. The wheel arches needed welding, which we didn't pick up at the first inspection. The inner wings needed completely new because they were just gone. They needed 2 new inner wings, and that obviously needed to be welded on. We needed 2 new wings, which we knew about. The seals needed welding. But other than that, this van, touch wood, is mechanically sound. It has taken me to the likes of Scotland, Lake District, Wales, Devon, Cornwall. I've done probably around 7,000 miles in it since I've had it, and it has not put 1 foot wrong. So, cosmetically, all right, needed some work. The most important thing is mechanically sound. You want a good, reliable van to take you on some epic adventures. Also, in parts of preparation, there are going to be things that need treatment. So rust. Rust is a very big thing. There was quite a bit of rust on this van, I won't lie, especially taking off the old interior. And that is rust treatment and preparation. When this van was empty, I did do a lot of rust treatment. Probably not the best way of doing it, but I done it, and it's okay. There are some rust signs showing through on new parts. I'm going to need to redo them parts at a later date, but research how to treat rust properly and just do it properly, and hopefully you should never have to do it again. But also with rust comes leaks. So just before I come out on this adventure, the seam at the top of the roof back here, I did initially treat and seal off. I knew it was a leak at the time, but that was obviously when it was an empty shell. So I sealed it off and there were no leaks. However, I didn't seal it off properly. I just used Sikaflex or whatever. It's a good temporary measure, but permanently, no bueno. So just before I come out on this little adventure that I'm on now, it was heavily raining back home and all of my sealing was wet. So that is leaking again, which is not good. I need to reseal it, but I know the proper way of doing it now. So hopefully no bueno should be bueno, and I should be leak free when I get back home. I do have 2 other leaks at the front of the cab, which I am also going to tackle. One of them I'm still trying to find is an absolute ball ache. So if you have any leaks, get it sealed up, do it properly, and you should be good. My next van construction fail is the worktop. the old saying goes, measure twice, cut once. This worktop was quite expensive, and even though I thought I measured right and cut, it was completely foobar. Right, well, that was a costly mistake. So that was the main mess up of this construction. I mean, my van is rough around the edges, I won't lie. I'm not a carpenter, so all the woodwork is questionable. If you squint, it's mint. But the main one that really got to me was the worktop. So I had to buy a new worktop, do it again. But there was a little silver lining in the clouds, is the offcuts of the messed up worktop I used for my pull-out table. So it was all hunky-dory in the end, but it was a quite expensive fail, basically. Next one we're going to talk about is a recent one, is my sink. I wouldn't necessarily say a fail, but the more I use this van, the more I'm trying to adapt and modify things to make it more efficient. So the old sink was a surface mounted round basin sink, and I thought it looked absolutely incredible. I loved it. However, it wasn't that efficient. Washing up was a bit of a faff because there was not much space in it. It was in the way, not in the way, but it was hindering space on the worktop. So I recently bought this little Belfast style sink and put it in so I can put all my dishes in there and it doesn't take up much space. I'm reducing the clutter. And also I'm getting a chopping board that's custom fit to this sink. So it will sit in the sink like so, and I'll still have all of this space to cook, prep, work on, all of that. So it's all about efficiency and space. You really have to be smart about how you do your build, especially if you've got a medium wheelbase and there's not a lot of space to play with. If you've got a long wheelbase or a jumbo or an extra long, it's not as bad because you've got space to play with, whereas in here, it's very fucking tight. So my next fail I'm going to talk about is my rear windows. I installed this external wheel mount carrier because I have an underslung gas tank which replaces my spare wheel carrier. And this van was a minibus, so it had rear windscreen wipers. And I don't know if you can see, I put a little bit of pad in there, but where the windscreen wiper was, it was wedged in between the wheel mount carrier and the window. Without the wheel, it was absolutely fine, but when I put the spare wheel on and I shut the door, the window just popped and smashed. And I wasn't even annoyed about it, I just looked at it and laughed, because if you don't laugh, you'll cry, right? So basically, I replaced the window. However, they were factory fitted windows, so I decided to basically upgrade them and get proper tinted windows. And in a way, I am glad that I smashed that window because it looks so much better. And fingers crossed, I haven't smashed this window yet. So that was another fail, smashing my own windows. But also fitting these new windows. I've never changed a window before in my life, so it was completely new to me. And even though I pumped all the way around a lot of primer and a lot of adhesive, they were still leaking, which I was getting frustrated with. So what I done was put a load of sealant up the top. All right, it doesn't look the best, but it does the job. These windows are watertight and they do not leak anymore. So we're going to quickly move to the front of the van and talk about a couple of things in here. And we're going to be talking about the headlining. I fabricated this headlining and I put a nice black carpet lining on. So I had to do some modification. I had to take off the old headlining and cut around it to make it fit at the front and all the awkward angles. And then there's just, I think, 3mm ply at the top to still get that nice curve. But this is what I'm saying with measure twice, cut once, because I didn't do that. And as you could see, there's a gap. There's another one this side as well. So yeah, I'm still trying to figure out the best way to cover that up with it looking neat and seamless. But it's only a minor thing. It's not the end of the world, but I think the most phrased saying throughout this video is going to be measure twice, cut once. Not measure once, cut a million times. So the next thing we are going to talk about is the Max fan. A lot of people don't like them for the price that they are, but I think they're worth their weight in gold. Brilliant bit of kit. And these ones are very voltage sensitive. I think the newer models, they've rectified it, but these are very 12 volt sensitive. And when you've got a lithium battery that can potentially put out more than 12 volts, long story short, it can fry the PCB board. So what you need to do, which is what I've done, is get a voltage transformer to keep that current at 12 volts rather than it spiking up to 13, 14 volts or whatever. Thankfully, when I blew the PCB in this fan, I was still under warranty by like a month. Normally I'm a month out of warranty, and credit to Maxair where credit's due. I contacted them, proved my purchase and my receipt when I got it, and they basically sent me out a PCB board free of charge because it was still technically under warranty. So just bear that in mind, that if you do get a Maxair fan, they can be very voltage sensitive, and just get a voltage transformer just to be on the safe side, because it will save a lot of hassle. Another thing regarding this fan is the placement of it. I messed up a little bit because of the placement of the fan, but I put it as far forward as I could, which is a little bit annoying. I should have brought it back a couple more inches, but there is a structural beam roughly here. So I could have gotten away with it a couple of inches back towards this way, because it just makes it a little bit annoying trying to take off the mesh to clean it and things like that. I didn't use the fascia trim that came with Maxair. I made my own one out of wood, as you can see. Although it does look nice, I quite like it. It does make it an absolute ball ache to take off the mesh cover. So it makes it a little bit difficult to clean. It's still doable, but it's a little bit fiddly. So yeah, I would have loved to have just moved it back enough, maybe put on that plastic fascia trim, and then it would have been a lot easier to sort out not only cleaning, but maintenance as well. When I had to take the fan out to change the PCB, it was very, very fiddly, and it got my blood levels rising a little bit. So again, placement, think about where you're putting things. I would also have loved to have had another fan or an openable window at the back, but unfortunately I didn't really have much room for that. So there is that. So the next one on my van life fails is the water filter. Specifically that. When I was in the Lake District a couple of months ago, my walk-in floor mat was absolutely soaking, and I thought it was just water from the bottom of my shoes. However, there was too much water to basically think that it was that. So I done a little bit of digging, and the casing of my filter was actually leaking, and I thought it was the seal to start with. So I took it all apart and checked it all out, and it all seemed good. So I put it all back together, still leaking. Turns out there was a hairline crack in the filter itself. And again, credit where credit's due. The company that I ordered it from, I called them up and said the situation. And thankfully they had a couple of spare cases in the warehouse. So they just sent out a new one, and all I had to do was pay for delivery. So it was an easy fix, but my van was absolutely flooded by the end of the night. I had to turn off the water and I couldn't really use the water. So yeah, don't flood your van. And one thing I learnt very, very quickly using this van, I don't live in this van full time at the moment, but I do use it a lot. One thing I've learnt very quickly within my first trip actually is water conservation. I've only got a 50-litre water tank and a 20-litre grey water tank. And the first trip I went to was South Wales, all excited, used my water, but I was just letting the water run like it was an endless supply. And I quickly filled up my 20-litre grey water tank and then some. I flooded the van for a second time. So if you're new to van life, be very water conscious. It doesn't last forever and you could potentially flood your van. Okay, so they're the majority of the van life fails that I've endured throughout the construction of this van. I'm going to talk about things that I would probably improve living in this van, starting off with the kitchen doors. So as you can see, my kitchen doors are just off the bottom, and then when I take it out, it all just crumples up the rug, and then it just makes it very awkward. So what I would have done in hindsight is build a little base for the unit to sit on, so they're kind of like floating, and then that would alleviate any of the problems. But I am going to sort this out. I think I'm going to probably just plane off the bottom, or just take a few centimeters off the bottom, so hopefully I don't have that issue going forward. So another thing I would improve in the van is just the general fabrication and the carpentry of the van. Carpentry is not my strong point whatsoever. So as I said, I'm very proud and very happy with what I've done, but there is a lot of room for improvement. Another thing I should have improved on is the tiling. A lot of people go for like a vinyl tiling and then have an actual metal guard for your hob, but I decided to go for real tiles, and at a distance it doesn't look too bad. But if you look really closely, I'm just going to be brutally honest here, if you look closely, it's not the best. But this is the first time I have ever tiled in my life, so it's a really good first attempt, I think. And I think one of the most important things is, again, comes with preparation, is the paint. I hate painting. I find it the most boring thing in the world. Apologies if you're a painter. I just can't get on with it. But the preparation of the paint, apply paint that is mold resistant, weather resistant, things like that, or even some kind of coating that has mold resistant properties or weather resistant properties. Because even though I'd done that on external things, so like my doors and things that may come into contact with rain or anything like that, I didn't do it on the inside, and I hope I don't regret it. Maybe, we will see, but I spent 3 days painting this van and I need to repaint it again. And also have a look at wipeable paint or washable paint, if that's a thing. I think it is, because using this van a lot, especially around the kitchen cabinets at the bottom and the seats at the bottom, they do get very dirty and muddy from if you've been out, or it's just a thing that's always going to happen. But if I wipe it away, it does go away, but it does stay there, and it can also wipe off the paint that I've used. So I would recommend looking at a wipeable paint or some kind of paint that you could wipe dirt off of, if that makes sense. I never understood this, but I feel like this is one thing that I kind of done right, and that is I'd done the flooring at the end of my build. this flooring to be exact. I don't know, I just feel like if I'd done the flooring at the start of the build, like one of the first things, then it would have just got trashed throughout the build of the van. You could argue you could put protection down and like prevent any damages, but you also use less material. And if you use less material, you spend less money. So all I really needed was this section here and that section there. Basically nothing. So I feel like that's one thing I done right. But another thing I would also improve on, if I had the space, is the size of the fridge. Now, I really like this fridge. I like the placement. It sits under my bed, it's out the way, and it's in the middle. And then we've got a switch either side and USBs either side. So it looks very nice and in unison. But you just can't really store much in there. Don't get me wrong, you can still store quite a bit in there. I think I could store 2, maybe 3 days worth of food in there if I cram it in. But a bigger fridge would be a big improvement. But where would I put it is the question. But there are a lot of things that I didn't take into account when converting my van. Just little things that slip your mind easily. So like your blinds, your curtains, your fly nets, and like storage up on the walls as well. I mean, I've got 1, 2, 3 cupboards. That's my food cupboard, that's my bowls, plates, glasses cupboard, and that's my clothes cupboard. I also have storage up here, which as you can see is empty. So if I need to, that is my excess storage. And I've also got storage under that seat there. But it's things like these. I didn't really think about these when I was building the van. I could have put them on the inside and have them inside, but that was just the easiest and best way for me to do it. And then I've also got some storage up here, which is quite handy for phones, things like that. And I've got a little bit of storage up there. So that is pretty much my van life fails. There's been quite a few in this journey already, and no doubt there will be a lot more. But if you are converting your own van or you're living in your own van, drop a comment, let me know what your van life fails have been. And if you did enjoy this video, give us a thumbs up. And if you want to see the adventures that I am going to be embarking on in the future, feel free to hit that subscribe button. And I'll see you in the next van video.